Hello and welcome to the Space Between Ideas. I'm Blaine Gates. Today we are using ChatGPT. All right, ChatGPT, yeah, you know me. Let's start with this question. I wrote down, usually when people think about wellness or enhancing wellness, there are some standard types of wellnesses, is that a word, that are important to people. For example, maintain or enhance wellness. Now, this also, of course, it attaches back to this concept of intrinsic motivation and drive to improve financial wellness, physical wellness, spiritual wellness, emotional wellness. And why did I write down either you want it or you don't care? So before we jump into the answer, let's rewind and go back to the very beginning. This is like a very complicated thing if you haven't been watching my videos. But if you have been watching my videos, maybe I should put a video up here where you can click and go back to this video. What you find out is this concept called a facilitation trigger and a spark trigger. Like, take a look here. So it says, what's the difference between a facilitation trigger and a spark trigger? A facilitation trigger, you can see that it's right here. So a facilitation trigger, it's what helps you move from no action to action. Oh, wait a minute. A spark trigger also helps you move from no action to action. Wait, so what's the difference between a facilitation trigger and a spark trigger? Well, over here, we're feeling frustration, and here we're feeling annoyance. Why are we feeling frustrated? We're feeling frustrated because we have a motivating behavior. That means I like the thing that I'm doing. I like my job. I like this project. I like to do this thing. So I'm interested. I have some intrinsic motivation for the thing which I am doing. It means, like, you don't even have to pay me and I will do this because I really enjoy this thing. Like eating. You don't have to pay me to eat. I love eating. All right. So, but then the thing is that's actually a cost. When you eat, it's actually a cost. So the question is, can you be more productive? Can you quantify some type of productive labor? And it's a thing that you enjoy doing. Yes. Okay. So there's this thing that I really like doing. And then what? But the question is, if you really enjoy doing that thing, then the main issue is, like, how difficult is it? Do you know how to do it or not? So if you don't know how to do it, you need a facilitation trigger, meaning you need education. You need some steps. You need some help to understand how to use the tools. You need to understand how to actually get the job done. All right, so that's what it means, facilitation trigger. It means just give me some empowerment. Give me the education, give me the tools, give me the training, give me the team, give me the things which I need to succeed because I really want to succeed at this task. As opposed to feeling annoyance. Annoyance is like, I know how to do this. Okay, like I've done this a million times, but I don't like doing it. I just don't like doing it. And then they say, oh, well, what if we give you $1,000? And you're like, no, I don't like doing it. How about 10,000? Nice, I don't like doing it. How about 100? All right, I'll do it. So you see the spark, it's like, is there something else that you want that we can give you in order for you to do the thing which we want you to do? All right, now what does that have to do with work, business? So then next we moved into this area called the Big Five personality traits. And what we found out was that you have to have enough openness in order to generally show up to work, have a willingness to move forward, have some interest, curiosity in something, whether it's people or things or whatever it may be. Like you have to have some amount of openness, just because that means that you have some interest. So, I mean, it's almost like openness. Do I need a huge amount of openness? Not really. I think that it's not about how much openness that you have, but it is, do you have enough openness in order to do the job? That's a much different than conscientiousness, because when we talk about conscientiousness, then we're talking about time. Like, how much time does it take you to get the job done? If you are extremely conscientious, then you can reduce the amount of time that it takes in order to get the job done. And the thing about work is that we basically are trading time for money. And so if you're able to reduce the amount of time it takes to get some kind of job done, then it means that you can do more things. Now, let's say that some of those things are educational in nature. Well, that means that over time, the amount of value that you're able to provide also increases. And you can provide that same or more value for less and less time. What does that mean? That means that you are able to increase the amount of money that you can make. Why? Because we're talking about the essence here, the essence of productivity. I remember a while back, I was talking about money, and it was some kind of weird discussion about like what is the nature of money. And I was talking about how if you have two people standing on either end of a table, and you're saying, I want some of the productive assets, resources, systems, and processes that you have created or have access to, and the other person wants the same from you. And so then you put a piece of paper on the table. It's actually a contract. Money is actually a form of contract. That's why they're talking about smart contracts when it comes to these digital currencies, because actually money is a contract. So what I'm saying is I want a couple of those things that you have over there, and you're saying you want a couple of these things that I have over here, and then we just write it down on a piece of paper, and I write all the things that I want, and then the value is X. And then you write down all the things that you want, and the value is X. And then we just have to agree to a term. So do I have to give up all of those things right now in the form of the actual asset, or in the form of a representation of an asset called a currency? Or do I provide that in the future? And so sometimes people will put some kind of value to time, in this case, like an interest rate. And then they say, okay, well, you can fulfill your obligation according to the contractual, the words in the contract, contractual stipulations, I don't know. And at this time, and then I will provide you with the things that I've written down on the piece of paper at some future time. Plus, I will add some extra something because of the wait period. So it's just another element of the contract. Okay, but then the question is, that's just talking about trade. Currency is just trade. Money, it's just trade, because you don't have any kind of a value to the assets and processes and systems and procedures that you have mastered or accumulated or have access to until it's valuated. And it's not going to be valuated until somebody else wants it. But anyways, over time, it seems that there are some types of productive assets that seem to have maintained value, and people are always wanting. And then what happens is you create markets, and then these markets are how much supply and how much demand is in the world, or in your city, or in your town, or in your village, or in your house, or at your dinner table. Maybe you're writing up contracts with you and your kids. Okay, I want that last piece of meat. All right, well, what are you going to give me? Well, if you give me that last piece of meat, then you can go to bed an hour later. Okay, so it's like, that's the value. That's the thing that you wanted. That's the thing that they wanted. So that's conscientiousness. That's a weird way of looking at conscientiousness. Yeah, so it's just like how well can you get the thing done? How much time does it take to get the thing done? And I think that conscientiousness has a lot to do with your IQ, because it's just, a chip. It's just like processing power. Do you have the processing power or not? And if you have more and more, like when you buy a computer, you're not going into the store and saying, oh, I'll just take the average one. Or, I don't really need that much processing power. Like that's literally the thing that you need is processing power. That's like the whole game is I need to be able to process. All right, so it's openness and conscientiousness. And conscientiousness is the most important thing. I feel like extroversion, it's like similar to openness. It's like you just have to have enough interest in people that you're willing to deal with them at some level and be able to get the job done. Agreeableness, it's like, yeah, you just have to be friendly enough. Like, is it what if you're too extroverted? And what if you're too agreeable? And what if you're too open? And then at some point, you're not able to get the job done anymore because you're talking too much, you're forgiving, you're open, you're listening, you're agreeable too much, you're open, you're looking at things that don't actually matter. So those like openness, extroversion, agreeableness, those things actually have some negative element if you have too much. But conscientiousness is opposite. You only benefit when you have conscientiousness, because you get the job done. Now, I don't know, I had this weird thought about neuroticism this morning. I was thinking about, like, isn't neuroticism like all of these things? These are all neuroticism, right? So the question is about conscientiousness. It's like, when I'm getting a job done, the question is, how much neuroticism am I feeling as I'm doing the task? All right, so maybe this flips the question of conscientiousness a little bit, because I was saying, oh, all it means is that you're getting the job done. Well, all right, so if you approach something, so let's go back to this idea of Fogg's motivation model. So if you approach something that you are, what? Annoyance. What does it mean, annoyance? Annoyance, that's neuroticism. So it doesn't matter if you know how to do the task or not. If you're starting to have some neuroticism, you're feeling nervous or sensitive. So if you're having some emotional experience which runs contrary to getting the job done, then then that means that you're less conscientious. So neuroticism can actually pull down your conscientiousness, meaning that conscientiousness is connected to interest. It is connected to desire. So you can't just say, I'm conscientious all the time. You have to say that I'm conscientious about this thing, meaning I'm interested in this thing. I'm capable of doing this thing. I'm brilliant. I'm wonderful at doing this thing. I'm really great at doing this thing, and I love doing it. It's like, okay, but then if we look at neuroticism, then it's like, right? So it's now openness is the same way. So like, okay, it's like, let's go jump into a religious example. Sometimes when people talk about religious things, they say, wait, this is sacred. This is something that we don't want to make fun of. And that means that they're having some sensitivity to certain topics. And religious organizations generally have quite a few taboo subjects where they call it deep doctrine. And they say this is something that it will take like an immense amount of spiritual capacity in order to understand. And that you should be sober when talking about these things. Okay, so now in that case, they're saying that they want to increase the neuroticism when these certain topics are introduced. And I think that this is like a case in normal society as well. When we talk about right now, we're talking about wokeness, and we're talking about reverse racism, and we're talking about just any way that I can get some kind of benefit from the past or from the future, or I'm trying to find some kind of way to segment my particular attitude or belief system into society and see how I can benefit from that because of X. All right, extroversion. Extroversion, neuroticism again. So extroversion, why is it neuroticism? It's because when I get closer to other people, I feel sensitive or nervous. Agreeableness. All right, so agreeableness, when we talk about certain topics, I feel sensitive or nervous. So it just seems to me that everything is talking about like how sensitive and nervous are you when you're approaching certain types of topics. And if we want to have two specific types of sensitivity or nervousness, we can just jump back right back into Fogg's motivation model. So frustration is one type of nervousness, and annoyance is the other kind of nervousness. So this is about neuroticism. When we're in the no action area, we are high in neuroticism. And when we pass the activation threshold, it's because we are either intrinsically able to overcome the potential neuroticism that may be connected with whatever personality trait is associated with the task at hand, or not, or we just can't do it. And so that's the issue, is it's all about neuroticism, basically, I think. And then what Fogg says is, hey, listen, if you're feeling neuroticism, particularly if you're feeling frustration or annoyance, I would recommend this solution or this solution. And this is why I'm not so interested in the big five suddenly. It's because, wait a minute, there's no such thing as the big five. It's just like, are you just relatively nervous with yourself? Are you relatively nervous with other people? And are you relatively nervous with processes, procedures when you're doing things? Why do we need so much time and effort to talk about, especially when these things change based on the conditions around you? So they're situational specific. And that's why I'm introducing this concept of state purposes, because in addition to, like, the question is, what is causing the frustration and what is causing the annoyance? And generally speaking, I would say that in the last video, we were talking about the very bottom one, which is maintain or enhance wellness. Yeah, so I had another thought, and it's like, all right, let's back up one little step and let's remember the endeavor element. Thomas Buchholz, it's his theory that whenever we're trying to do something, it's always connected to these three things. Let's start with the bottom one. So potential, this is one of the base things. So humans, what separates us from the beasts? What separates it from like my dog who's over there? Well, basically, potential means your ability to imagine up some possibility. You think about the resources around you. Particularly, you think about how you can combine people together. And then you think about what motivates those people. And then you combine all those things for some future imagined end. That's the thing. That's the potential. What is it that we can do? What is the aim? What is the thing that we want? What is the future? What is the condition that we want to develop? And then the humans, they have this cute little feature that once they've imagined some kind of future reality, then they can actually put together an agenda. So step by step, what do I have to do in order to make that potential future a reality? And finally, after you've developed some kind of agenda, finally, we have the ability to take those steps, step by step, until we have accomplished the end. And so Tom says, basically, his endeavor elements are that every endeavor that we do is going to be a combination of these three base motivations. Basic motivations. Elementary motivations. So he's saying that when it comes to interest or desire, it's always connected to these three things. And then he says, well, how do I prove that? So he says, okay, I'll prove it step by step. For example, potential. Maintain or enhance wellness. And all right, so I was talking to a guy from France, and we basically came up with this idea that maintaining or enhancing wellness are generally associated with financial, physical, spiritual, emotional. And that's what brings us back to the ChatGPT, because I said that. So I said, look, it's like usually people are thinking about financial, spiritual, emotional. How can I make a list that incorporates more aspects of my life? It seems that the three basic elements of life are not emotional, physical, spiritual, because this doesn't help me to know where education fits in. All right, so I'm like disputing my own claims. ChatGPT says, yes, physical wellness, emotional wellness, intellectual wellness, social wellness, spiritual wellness, financial wellness, occupational wellness, and environmental wellness. And the conclusion from Fogg's motivation model is that either we have intrinsic motivation or we need some kind of stimulus. And what does that mean? So let's talk about physical wellness. Like, either you have a habit to go running every day, like I do. Well, sometimes I walk, but I didn't have that habit until I had this crazy little critter. And now I have to take him for a walk every night. So in that case, I don't have an intrinsic motivation to go out and run, but I have enough of a motivation for physical wellness. And then I have the spark of having a dog. Emotional wellness. What is that? What is that? All right. So like, what's the point? The point is that I'm not sure that these things are connected to the big five personality traits. So, like, for example, if we look at money, then it's like you have to be open enough to be able to accept change, because making money means to create change. And then, but conscientious, that's really important. So that's like the drive. If you have a natural interest to make money, and then it's really important that you work on your conscientiousness. And if you have a desire to make money, it's really important for you to work on your extroversion. Agreeableness, maybe. Neuroticism, you need to be calm, representative. So it depends on where you are in the company. If you're the CEO, then at some point, neuroticism is important. But as you can see, that the neuroticism, based on what we were talking about before, is really connected to your conscientiousness and your extroversion and your agreeableness and your openness. It's all about, all these things are neuroticism. Now, the next one is that physical fitness, you see? So now, again, so you have to be open enough to accept that you can change your physical health. And you have to have some interest. Then conscientiousness, I can complete the workout regularly. Extroversion, I need acceptance from others. Okay, so this is kind of like a spark trigger in this case. I would say that this is the facilitation trigger. It's the ability to be able to complete the workout. And then maybe if you're also interested in making acquaintance with other people who are also working out, that would be really helpful. That seems like a spark trigger, because it's not saying social, it says exercise, physical fitness. That's not actually something which is connected to extroversion. And okay, last time I was talking about, we're going to move into the next topic, which is attain certification or other recognition, which is right here. But anyways, I wanted to just do a little review today about this, because I find that every time I feel like I'm lost in the past, every time that I felt lost in the past, I would usually just jot down these words like financial, spiritual, emotional, and maybe intellectual, social, environmental, and then just jot down like, what do I want my life to look like in these areas? Going back to this concept of potential, like, where do I see myself in a month or 2 months? And then there's these agendas. Okay, so what do I have to do in order to reach those goals? And then action. So go do it.